With the caliphate now in Muawiyah's hands, turned into a full-scale empire, a new era for the caliphate begins. Muawiyah ascended to the throne of the caliph in 661 CE when Ali's son and heir, Hassan ibn Ali, gave him the caliphate. Now, before I forget, Muawiyah was the son of Abu Sufyan ibn Harb, whom you remember from the third episode as a leader of the Quraysh. Up to this point, I've been using the word office for caliphate, but now I'm using throne because this actually marked a shift in the caliphate. Before, it used to be a religious title as well as a secular one, but now it was more secular. The caliphate looked like an empire. The caliphs no longer adhered to simplicity. Muawiyah was an emperor, not much different than the Byzantine emperor himself. Shortly after his ascension, he came to Medina to talk to the people. In his inaugural address, he said, "O people, by Allah, it is easier to move firm mountains than to follow Abu Bakr and Umar in their behavior. But I have followed their way of conduct, falling short of those before me, but none after me will equal me in it." He was talking about their simplicity, their austerity. He made it clear that he's not going to follow them in that, and not only he, but no one after him is going to follow that either. His words eventually proved prophetic. He decided to keep Damascus as his capital because he had been the governor of Syria for around 20 years. It was his stronghold. In fact, during Uthman's time, Muawiyah was arguably more powerful than the caliph himself because of his iron grip on Syria. Now he was ready to spread that grip to all of the empire. Muawiyah styled himself as an emperor. He had all the prestige of the Byzantine emperor himself. He built a great court rivaling Constantinople in Damascus. He had a huge library of books called Bait al-Hikmah, basically a proto-house of wisdom. He was just. He treated minorities with kindness, and in fact his wife was a Christian and a poet. I kind of like that. He was strict, but also generous, and a hell of a diplomat. He united the shattering empire that the first fitna had left behind. He even got his worst opponents to side with him. Muawiyah dealt with the Khawarij threat that Ali had failed to deal with. He forced them into the shadows where they would lurk and plot for 400 years against the caliph. Muawiyah had already developed a navy during his time as governor, but as caliph he expanded it. Muawiyah fought the first Muslim engagement on the sea and then eventually laid siege to Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantines. Both of these were to fulfill the prophecies of Muhammad. Muhammad promised heaven to the first Muslim navy and the Muslims who conquered Constantinople. Muawiyah's siege of Constantinople failed pretty quickly when they introduced Greek fire. Remember the green-colored fire they used in Game of Thrones to win the Battle of Blackwater Bay and to separate church and state? Yeah, that was inspired by real-life Greek fire, so obviously Muawiyah's forces lost. During his 20 years as caliph, he made the empire modern, for the lack of a better word. He installed a postal service for communication, he declared edicts to help trade and agriculture. He did not rely on the aristocracy, but rather installed people on merit. Most of his most trusted officials weren't even from Quraysh, let alone his family, a tradition his successors wouldn't follow. So it's ironic that his most influential and controversial act was the appointment of his son Yazid as his successor. Yazid was a seasoned general, but he had no knowledge of politics. He was very unpopular, and many people tried to warn Muawiyah against appointing Yazid, but well, when Muawiyah died in 680 CE, Yazid ascended to the throne. Yazid ruled for around 3 years. As he was very unpopular, the hostilities from the civil war that his father had managed to keep quiet started to rise up. Two of his most prominent rivals were Hussein ibn Ali and Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Now, Yazid is too controversial, so I'm not going to get into that. Just know that the rebellion of Hussein ibn Ali was brutally pressed down in Karbala, and Yazid died before he could do anything about Abdullah ibn Zubayr's rebellion. He is one of, if not the most hated people in Islam today, because according to the general belief, he killed Hussein ibn Ali in a very brutal fashion. His son Muawiyah II ruled for around 18 days before he died childless in 683 CE as well, ensuing the empire into a crisis of succession. At this point, Abdullah ibn Zubayr was in full rebellion. He had even established a rival caliphate in Mecca. When Muawiyah II died, it didn't look like anyone other than Ibn Zubayr would take charge. However, one of Muawiyah I's cousins, Marwan ibn Hakam, declared himself heir to the empire. This started a second civil war between Marwan and Ibn Zubayr. Ibn Zubayr had solid support throughout the empire because he was a companion of Muhammad and his maternal grandfather was Abu Bakr, the first caliph, so he had some royalty in his blood. And Marwan, since he had always been seen as a shady character, lacked any support. Although thanks to his relation with Muawiyah I, he was able to secure support in Syria. In 684 CE, Ibn Zubayr sent an army to destroy the pretender Umayyad Caliphate in Syria. This resulted in the Battle of Rahid. which Ibn Zubayr lost. Hence, Marwan was able to secure all of Syria. Marwan died in 685 CE, around 6 months after this battle. He was succeeded by his son Abdul-Malik ibn Marwan. Abdul-Malik, unlike his father, was a capable man. He was trusted and managed to gather more support than his father. Meanwhile, new rebellions broke out. Kharijites sprung up and another party entered the civil war. A man called Mukhtar al-Tahakfi declared revolution to avenge Hussein ibn Ali's death. Abdul-Malik moved to secure as much area as he could because provinces were quickly rallying behind Ibn Zubayr. Meanwhile, Ibn Zubayr sent his brother Musab to deal with al-Mukhtar's rebellion. Al-Mukhtar was defeated and killed in 687 CE after around 2 years in revolt by Musab ibn Zubayr's forces. On the other side, Abdul-Malik appointed a general who was cruel, ruthless, but effective, Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. Al-Hajjaj spent the next 5 years tearing Abdullah ibn Zubayr's caliphate apart. Eventually, in 692 CE, he laid siege to Mecca, Ibn Zubayr's capital. This was shocking because Mecca was a haram and no Muslim could shed blood there, but Al-Hajjaj did not care. By this point, Ibn Zubayr had no allies. His own family had abandoned him. His allies had left him behind due to their fear of Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf's cruelty. Ibn Zubayr died near Kaaba in a brave last stand. He was brutally murdered and his body was mutilated. Through this, Abdul-Malik secured the Arabian Empire. He established himself as the sole caliph. Abdul-Malik himself was disturbed by Al-Hajjaj's brutality. He gave him Iraq to govern and complete autonomy. Abdul-Malik went on to become a great caliph, despite the violence at the start. The 14th century Arab philosopher and historian Ibn al-Khaldun in his book Al-Muqaddimah, hey, that's the name of the channel. Well, he stated that Abdul-Malik ibn Marwan was one of the greatest Arab and Muslim caliphs. He reigned for around 13 years after this. His time was fairly peaceful from there on. He built the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem, which still stands as a landmark and an important religious symbol. He minted a currency for the Islamic Caliphate, which eventually resulted in a battle with the Byzantines. Minting coins was the ultimate sign of authority. The entire empire, from Tunisia to Punjab, using the coin with his face on it, was a powerful gesture. He also reorganized the postal service started by Muawiyah. He repaired Kaaba, which was damaged during the siege of Mecca, beginning the tradition of weaving a silk cover for Kaaba in Damascus, still continued to this day. He died in 705 CE and was succeeded by his son al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik. He is known as Father of Kings because 4 of his sons ascended to the throne one after the other. See you next time.